The following contest is a second round match in the Kings of Consoles tournament to determine the greatest game in the history of the Nintendo Entertainment System. 2 games enter, only one can advance. Introducing first, the 59th seed, a 1987 action-adventure game from Tecmo, Rygar. And its opponent, the number 6 seed, a 1986 action-adventure game from Nintendo, Metroid. The ringside judges are Ricky Giraldo and Pat Dooley. There is nothing left to say but round 2, fight! Hello and welcome to episode 56 of Kings of Consoles. This is the podcast where we're trying to find the best game for each home video game console by means of giant tournaments. You have caught us in our 56th week, where we are seeing the number 6 seed, Metroid, as it takes on number 59, Rygar. I'm Pat Dooley.
And I'm Ricky Giraldo.
And last week, we did take a brief break from our run of Nintendo All-Stars to talk about Baseball Stars, when Baseball Stars, the number 28 seed, knocked Jackal out of the tournament to set up a third-round matchup against Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. And today, we are going to find out which game is going to move on to the third round to face Kirby's Adventure, which has the potential to be a huge showdown if the expected game moves on between two Nintendo icons. We do always start by talking about the underdog, though, which in this case is Rygar, which is a 1987 action-adventure game from Tecmo. It beat legendary Wings back in episode 36, 20 weeks ago. That was the last matchup of round 1. Kind of ending round 1 on a bit of a whimper, unfortunately. Neither of those were like, yeah, Rygar. It's still fine. I haven't found my feelings about it changing all that much over the course of the last few months. It's solid. It's a decent action platformer with some Metroidvania elements. It's fine.
You know, it's crazy, and this game is very popular. It's one of those games that's a lot of people know Rygar. Like, people remember Rygar. Mm-hmm. It's on the Switch for the NBA Classic. Oh, NBA, sorry. NES Classic.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it was a huge hit in arcades. It was a pretty big hit on the NES. It's had a bunch of, kind of remakes and spin-offs and stuff over the years. And you know what? Honestly, I think a big portion of that is the shield weapon is cool looking.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
It's very, especially from playing the Castlevania games now, I think this wanted to be a Castlevania.
Oh, yeah.
Did this come out before or after? Definitely after,
I think the first
right?
Castlevania was 86. I think this was a year later. But
this feels like that. This feels like it was supposed to rival Castlevania 3.
Actually, no. The first Castlevania was 87, so the same year as this.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the weapon Rygar uses reminds me a lot of the whip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. It's like a cross between Simon's whip and whatever that thing was that Kid Nicky had, that like weird blade that spun in front of him.
Yeah,
it reminds me kind of a cross between those two. Cooler than Kid Nicky's weapon, but not as cool as Simon's whip.
Right.
But it was, it was something different in 1987, so it, had an impact.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think the most iconic item is the holy water from Castlevania, because in Castlevania 1 it helped me out so much. But
yes. Yeah, there's definitely nothing like that in Rygar. In Rygar, it's like, oh, the grappling hook, super helpful. I can climb up this section of the mountain
level,
now that I couldn't before. But yeah, I mean, we'll get into how far we made it and what items we had later. But yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not much to talk about with Rygar that we didn't say, 4 months ago. It's fine.
It's fine. And that's the other problem I think we have is just it doesn't really grab you. Like
Yeah.
It's not I don't want to say it's not cool, but it really isn't. I don't think the character himself is cool. The enemies you fight are not that interesting. I don't know. It just didn't grab me the second time, and I think it didn't grab you as well.
I agree. And I think, and part of that is, now that we're so far into round 2, like you try and compare Rygar to, well, for example, Metroid, but also like, the Castlevania games. We've now played, all 3 of those, and we hadn't at that point. Or we just played 2. Had we played any of the Castlevania games at that point? I don't remember. No, I think they all got first round.
They were
buys.
all second round.
Yeah. So, right. So, but I mean, we've played, all 3 Super Mario Brothers, all 3 Castlevanias, Metroid, Kirby, River City Ransom, the first Dragon Warrior, Bionic Commando. Like, we hadn't played any of those games by the time we got to episode 36. And now we have. And I was like, oh, we were grading on a curve in round 1.
Yeah.
Like this does not belong with the heavy hitters. It's fine.
We're very, I was thinking about it too. We're very lucky that we played, or that these games that were not in the first round were in the first round, because playing these games, like the mega games, like what we're about to talk about, Metroid, you could just tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And playing Rygar and then playing Metro, it's like, wow.
Yeah. I didn't really realize it as a kid, but there is a serious tier system for the NES. Like
there really is.
Like once you get beyond about the top 15 to 20 games for the system, the difference between, like, let's say 30 and 70 isn't really that big, but the difference between 30 and 20 is huge.
Yep.
Like, I mean, all those games we just mentioned, like, and there are still great games we haven't even played yet. Like the, Mega Man 2 and 3 are still coming up. We've still got the first two Zeldas, and Kid Icarus and Contra. Like, I mean, the top tier of NES games is so much better than anything else that came out for that platform. I feel like later consoles, there's more of a, compared to like the PS4, like the PS4, like, yeah, there are, great games that are head and shoulders above everything else. Your Witcher 3s, your God of War, your Last of Us, Uncharted 4, like the really, really great games. But I don't feel Horizon Zero Dawn, but I don't feel like there's like as big of a gap between the best of the best for the PS4 and like the 25th best game for the PS4, like there is on the NES side. But maybe that's just me. Like, even a mediocre game now, there are still bad games, but I feel like the people have figured out how to make games now to a level where, like, there's nothing quite as mind-blowing as like Metroid was in 1986, and how much better it was than other games for the console.
I agree. It's very, I mean, we could start talking about Metroid, but man, is that game so much better than Rygar.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Spoilers for what we're probably gonna pick, but going back to Rygar, let's see some positives. Positives, it looks pretty sometimes, right?
Like, yeah, it's got, for a 1987 platformer, it's got pretty good graphics.
Yeah, it's good. It's just
music is solid.
Music is solid. The idea of using your shield or whatever to make bridges, or you can make bridges, or not bridges, but like,
but yeah, there's like zip lines, kind of
zip lines. Thank you. Yes,
and then you could like grapple up to places that you couldn't get by jumping.
Yeah.
depending on what upgrades you pick up. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Bionic Commando in that regard, with the ability to use your weapon as also a means of traversing the level. It's interesting. It does a lot of stuff that other games of the era weren't doing. So it's definitely worthy of inclusion on the list.
Right. Do we know the story of Rygar? I still don't understand. Like, why am I seeing a big giant man, and why is he giving me?
I don't remember offhand. Let me see, because I still have the format document from that episode saved somewhere. Let me pull it up and see. The legendary warrior Rygar has risen from the grave and uses his disc armor to try and save the land of Argul from Lygar, traveling between realms to collect items from the Indora gods. So,
right.
Not really. No.
And it doesn't tell you anything in the story.
No.
Like, you meet this big giant genie looking dude,
mm-hmm.
and then he's basically like tells you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, what are you? Like, what?
I guess those are the Indora gods. Because you run into a series of those. Like, some of them are like, you can't go any farther without the grappling hook. It's like, okay, cool. Where do I get the grappling hook? Or you can't go any farther without the it's not, they don't call it the zip line. It's got a different name, but it's basically a zip line. Ah, well. And then occasionally you come across one that's like, hey, heal up. And like, oh, awesome. Thank you.
Right. Well, that's Rygar. Rygar is Rygar.
Oh, another thing I liked about Rygar. If you die, you go back to the beginning of the level you're on. There's no game overs where you have to go all the way back. I did like that. But like, if you had made it far enough, you wouldn't have to replay the whole thing. You just have to replay that level. But yeah, we'll get into how far we made it later. But I guess it is finally time to start talking about Metroid, which is a 1986 action-adventure game from Nintendo. Space pirates had taken parasites known as Metroids from a Galactic Federation ship and planned to replicate them in order to use them as a bioweapon. And the only person who can stop them is bounty hunter Samus Aran. Featured one of the first shock endings in gaming history when Samus removes their helmet to reveal that she's a woman.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what that would be like now? Just the
probably not as shocking.
Pants peeing outrage of fans if they found out that at the end of Halo 5, Master Chief has been a woman the whole time. Just nerd rage. I did find it interesting that the word Metroid is a portmanteau of the words Metro and Android. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just, robots in the city, I guess, is where they wanted to come up with it. The composer of the game, Hirokazu Hip Tanaka, told Gamasutra that he decided on a minimalist score, which is really noticeable that there's not much music in the game, because he wanted the player to feel like they were encountering a living organism and wanted the music to be the opposite of the hummable songs in other games of the era. So that's why there's no, do-do-do-do-do-do. There's nothing like that in Metroid that, you're humming for days after it, because he wanted it to be a more organic experience. And I think that worked. It did spawn 9 direct sequels, including the mega popular Metroid Prime series, as well as being emulated on the Virtual Console and Nintendo Switch Online. Unlike other games of the era where items and character upgrades are temporary, Metroid requires players to double back through the game to gather items that they will carry with them through to the end. This really is the start of the Metroidvania genre, is the first Metroid. Game Informer and Electronic Gaming Monthly both included the game in their all-time top 100 lists. Obviously, IGN has it at number 6 on their NES list, and Nintendo Power called it the 11th best game for any Nintendo console. As of 2004, which unfortunately was the most recent data I could find, 2.73 million units of Metroid had been sold, making it the 18th best-selling game for the platform. That one's for you, Medic Sloan. I know you're a fan of the financial stuff. I'm trying to be more cognizant of looking that up when the data is available. 2.73 million copies of this NES cart. That's just wild. So this is a game I had played when I was a kid. I don't think I played it when it was brand new because I would have only been like 3 or 4. But I was probably 8 or 9. One of those like, oh, you got to play Metroid. And I remember liking it, but not loving it as a kid. But I think part of it is like the Metroidvania of it all. Like, my brain wasn't wired yet to be able to do that. I was used to Mario, running in a straight line and, just keep going right until you reach the end of the level. So having to like backtrack to get, the double missiles or the extra health or the ability to roll into a ball and all of that. Like right off the bat, if you go left instead of right, you get your first power up, which, that was not how my brain was wired at that point.
I agree with you. The first Metroid game I played was Super Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I agree. I think when we were younger, the whole going back to the level just didn't. Because I remember the first time I played it, I was like, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You get stuck, and really, you just need like one power up or something that will get you through the next stage or next level.
Right. Yeah, because there's, early on you come across, you find a blue door. If you shoot it, it opens. But if you come across a red door, it's like, oh, I can't get through here. So you have to like get to the part of the level where you go, oh, now I have missiles. Let me go back and try shooting that door with missiles. Okay, that works. That opens up a new section for me that I couldn't get to before. Or like, I can't get through here. Oh, let me go back and get the thing that lets me roll up into a ball and I can roll through that little gap. It's like an action version of some of the point and clicks we were playing, like in Maniac Mansion. Like, oh, well, I can't get through here unless I've got the music that I can play for the tentacle. Only in this case, it's badass rocket launchers and stuff that you're backtracking to get, and you're fighting aliens instead of weird blue scientists. So maybe it's not a great analogy, but you kind of get what I mean.
Yeah. So what'd you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. Now, as a, middle-aged man, I loved this. This was so much fun. It's hard. Like, there's definitely a high level of challenge to it. But yeah, this is, there's a reason that this game, this franchise has stuck around. It's not like Rygar where it's like, oh, that was cool when I was a kid. This is still cool.
Yep, I agree. The levels are so pretty with the colors. It looks so alien.
Yep.
When you could roll up into a ball, it's just like nothing we've seen before in a game. I think the different play styles in the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. This game was something else. We've had those games like Metal Storm and Castlevania 3 that it's just like, man, I want to keep on playing. I want to
River City Ransom,
and this is definitely one of them. This is one of those games that
100%
I really liked.
Yeah, this is an excellent game, and honestly, because this is kind of how I felt about Kirby when we played Kirby's Adventure, like. Kirby was like, oh, my mind is blown. I've never played this game, and this is so good. And I'm a little worried. Like, it's Metroid against Kirby in round 3. Which,
oh no!
Assuming we haven't officially picked a winner yet, but I feel like if you've listened this far, you know which way we're going to go. So actually, before we continue heaping praise on it, we should probably find out who made it farther. And then we can come back to heaping more praise on Metroid and talking about the next round.
Who made it for them? Who made it for them?
Rygar, I actually made it to a boss this time, which I didn't the first time. I got my butt kicked by the boss and never made it past the boss. But it was like a turtle shell.
Yep.
But it had like 2 cat heads on it.
Yeah, that's where
it would shoot like 3-pronged like blasts at you.
Yeah, that's where I made it as well.
And that thing was really, really hard.
It was, man. And that's the thing, like the game wasn't that difficult at the time, and then you reach this boss and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, I blew through most of the rest of it, but just the difficulty ramps up real high at that point. Yeah. It's that was not fun, but hey, look, it's another tie. We haven't had one of those in a while.
It's true.
Yeah, you've been just kind of kicking my butt for a long time, so I guess I'll take a tie. Of course, you'll probably grow your lead here with Metroid, which is really hard to gauge how far you made it, because
I'll tell you where I made it.
Okay.
I made it to Ripley.
Oh, well, then you beat me. I did not make it to either Ridley or...
Ridley. I said Ripley. What the heck?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Or what's the other one? Kraid. No. Kraid is the space pirate from later ones. That's not who I'm thinking of. The first
let me tell you guys, I did not beat Ridley. Ridley
it
was
is Kraid.
Hard.
It's Kraid.
Ridley was hard.
Yeah. I remember Ridley being hard, but I did not make it there. So your lead expands. You are now up to 52 wins to my 44.
Come on, man.
It's just getting ugly.
The games that we have more time, I've just been like, all right, I got 2 hours. And
I had picked up a lot. I had made it to that first elevator, which I think I was getting close to Ridley. Like you're in like a white room, and then there's an elevator that goes down. And then if you go left, there's a jump that you can't make yet because there's some power up I needed. And then I couldn't make it through, not the first room to the right, but the second one to the right. So I kept having to go back to the elevator, and I just ran out of time doing that loop over and over again. So I think I was close to Ridley. I just never actually made it there. So,
yeah, I think you were definitely almost there.
Yeah. I vaguely remember from childhood that I was close. But of course, as a kid, I was using the Nintendo Power walkthrough because there's no way I would have figured that out on my own as a dumb little kid. So, yeah, the lead expands. I mean, let's just go ahead and say it. It's going to be Metroid that faces Kirby's Adventure in round 3, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And 100% of our listeners that voted agreed. Like this is an open and shut case. Rygar's, good for what it is, but yeah, Metroid is definitely a cut above. But before we start going into the plugs here, we do have our weekly, our question of the week from Rhino. I know that's what he calls it on his podcast, so I feel like we should, for branding consistency. Question of the week. If you could create a baseball team based on characters from Nintendo games, who would be on your team, and what would your team's name be? I texted you about this earlier in the week. Did you come up with a team?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this like fantasy draft style and take turns making a pick and then?
All right, sure.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Wait, how many players? 5?
I went, well, for baseball, it should be 9, and then I added a DH, but you don't have to.
I mean, to be honest, once again, baseball is my least favorite sport, so I don't even know how many players are in a team of baseball. so I really just picked 5.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead. What's your 5 then?
So I got I got as my pitcher Mario
Okay.
because he does the fireballs.
Right. Smart.
My baseman, I'm pretty much Luigi. Like I was like, he could be a good first baseman or
Yeah.
something, you know?
He's lanky. He's got some
Right.
reach. Yeah.
And then offensive side, I got my like heavy hitter Bowser. You know,
Smart.
this guy's my Barry Bonds or my I don't even know if I can
Yeah.
say that. You know what I mean? And then if I need like, I feel like if I need a runner, would be Toad.
Okay.
Like if I need like maybe get a single, and I think my all star would be Waluigi. I think he would be my the main guy who runs my team.
Right.
If I need a hit, if I need something, that's the guy.
All right. Well, so I went a different way. I went with any player, any character from any game that we've played was eligible to be on the teams, was eligible to be drafted. So,
oh wait, I thought it was just Mario characters.
No, it just said from Nintendo
oh
games.
My god, I just picked Mario characters like a dummy.
Well, if I say when I give my team, if something jogs your memory, you feel free to jump in.
Go ahead.
So my first pick, this one feels like a gimme to me. My catcher is going to be a character that no pitch would ever get by, and that's Kirby.
Okay.
We want to make sure that Kirby could, Kirby would get it. My center fielder, I want somebody with some range, and ideally the ability to get up real high to rob somebody of home runs. And nobody gets higher than the M308 gunner from Metal Storm. So that's my center fielder.
Of course, then he could just turn gravity.
Yeah, exactly. That one's leaving the park. No, it's not. Flip gravity and just catch it on the way up. My shortstop, I wanted to have somebody with some range, catch those, those line drives that slip through the gap. So I went with Lad/Rad from Bionic Commando. For my pitcher, I went with the level 4 boss from Kung Fu, the sorcerer guy, because he throws those magic balls really far and really fast.
Or Mega Man. Mega Man could be a good pitcher.
Ooh, Mega Man would be a very good pitcher. My left fielder, I went with somebody that is good at getting to balls and throwing them far fast. I went with Chip from the Rescue Rangers. My right fielder, you definitely want somebody with a big arm in right field to try and throw out, runners going to third. So I went with Joe Montana from Tecmo Super Bowl, who can throw flat-footed from his own end zone into the opposite end zone.
Mentioning Tecmo Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, that's right.
You have to do it every episode. You have to mention it.
Just pretty much, as often as I can.
It lost.
Also, you want kind of a power guy at third base, but also somebody that's got a strong arm. So I want a guy that knows how to swing a bat real hard, and also throw a ball real hard. And so I went with Alex from River City Ransom as my third baseman. And then first and second base were just kind of like, okay, well, I need to fill these spots, but there's nothing that's like jumping out at me for those. So I just went with two guys with a, with an affinity for swinging big sticks and making contact. So my first baseman is Mike Jones, from Star Tropics. And my second baseman is Donatello.
All right.
So
I like it.
So I've got the level 4 boss from Kung Fu as my pitcher. Kirby's my catcher. My infield from left to right is Alex, Lad, Donatello, Mike Jones. My outfield from left to right is Chip, the M308 gunner, and Joe Montana.
Joe Montana, just switching sport.
Yeah. So like I said, I went a slightly different route than you did on this one. Unfortunately, I did not think of a name for this team, though. So, I mean, I may just go, Super Nintendo cliche and call them like the Super Smash Brothers. Or no, the Super Bash Brothers, because the Bash Brothers is what Maguire and Canseco's nickname was when they were in Oakland. So, yeah, the Super Bash Brothers. So, yeah, we went very different ways with that one.
Yeah, I really thought it was just Mario characters. I was like, oh,
yeah, it's all right. The cool thing is, like, if the idea of an all Mario character baseball game sounds fun, there's a ton of Mario baseball games out there. Like, they basically made one for every console since, GameCube, I think, was the first one to have Super Sluggers or whatever they call them.
I thought that Super Nintendo had it.
Did it? I know N64 was the first one to have golf and tennis.
Yeah, GameCube brought soccer.
Game. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But there's a ton. Like, I mean, there's definitely one for Switch. There's one for Wii. There's one for GameCube. There's maybe one for 64. There's maybe one for Super Nintendo. But yeah, there's no shortage of Mario baseball games, if that sounds fun to you. There is not, as of yet, a game where you can play with Kirby and the M308 Gunner and Lad and Donatello and Chip and the level 4 boss from Kung Fu and Alex and Joe Montana and Mike Jones. But, a boy can dream. So next week, after Samus's dominant victory here, we are continuing our Nintendo All-Stars as the number 2 overall seed in the tournament. The Legend of Zelda takes on number 63 Gargoyle's Quest 2: The Demon Darkness. You can see the full bracket at challonge.com/Kings of Consoles, CHALLONGE.com/Kings of Consoles. You can throw a little money our way if you feel so inclined at ko-fi.com/Kings of Consoles. You can watch our increasingly rare streams, but they do happen at twitch.tv/Kings of Consoles. You can email us kingsofconsolespod@gmail.com. Facebook.com/Kings of Consoles. You can follow us on Twitter at Kings of Consoles. You can follow me on Twitter at LoopyDate.
And you can follow me at RickyGN7.
And of course, you can rate, review, subscribe on whatever podcast platform you prefer, including this one right now that you're listening to us on. Whatever it is, I'm sure there is a way to subscribe and some sort of rating and review system. So yeah, help spread the word. And hey, the listener feedback section doesn't always have to be a question from Ryan O. We are glad that it is. We love answering his questions. He always comes with good stuff. But if you just ever have any questions about any of these games, feel free to reach out in any of the myriad ways that I just listed. Ricky, do you have anything else you want to talk about with Metroid or Rygar before we get to playing old games?
Metroid's a classic. Rygar, not so much. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, if you've learned nothing else from this episode, that was the TLDR of this episode. Just there.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week with Zelda and Firebrand. And until then, play old games. We'll see you next week.
Play old games.
Kings of Consoles is recorded in Nashville and Orlando and is produced and edited by me, Pat Dooley. Thanks to Captive Portal for our theme song, intro for a non-existent video game, which can be found at freemusicarchive.org. And the music and sound effects from this week's games can be found with a quick Google search. The opinions expressed in this and every episode are our own, and we are in no way sponsored by or affiliated with Nintendo. We're just